In other words, those who come to be trained by them are taught only one random aspect or way of Dhamma, and that's all, as though the sasana only has that one way of teaching the world, whereas in fact the great teacher and all the savakas did not complete the task with only one aspect of Dhamma, but with many different aspects. In addition, the Lord Buddha taught them and taught the world enough aspects of Dhamma to suit the ability of beings in the world. But this would seem to have been a very small proportion of what was available to his knowledge and skill in his basic capacity as the Lord Buddha, who was the supreme teacher, Sasada, of the world. Chapter 20. Venerable Ajaan Mun's Practice and His Methods of Teaching. We are getting near the end of this book, so it is appropriate that we should discuss the methods of practicing Citta Bhavana that Venerable Ajaan Mun used, as well as the methods which he used in teaching those followers of his who went into training under him. This may act as sort of a guide to the way, in the form of a brief summary, but in particular, the way that he himself practiced will first be considered, after which the way he taught his close followers will be described. In this section, the names of the places where he practiced and gained results will not be given, because they have already been detailed in his biography. So the following account will only deal with his methods of practicing Citta Bhavana, and all external phenomena, such as contact with pretas, ghosts, devaputta, devata, nagas, garudas, etc., will be omitted, as they have already been described. The nature of Venerable Ajaan Mun's citta was unusually dynamic, venturesome, quick, and sensitive to whatever events he came into contact with. To begin with, in doing the practice of bhavana, he used the preparatory repetition parikamma buddho. As soon as his citta dropped into a concentrated, calm state, he saw a nimitta, sometimes of himself, dead in front of him, sometimes of a corpse in front of him, as has already been described in his biography. Then he took that nimitta which had appeared before him as an indicator of the way his meditation practice should go from then on, by defining it as being loathsome, paṭipadā, in various ways, according to where his greatest skill in sati and paññā lay. He would sometimes define it as breaking down and decomposing until all that was left of it was a skeleton. Then he would define the bones as separate from each other, scattered about right in front of him. Then sometimes he would also sweep them together in a heap, and set them up to be burnt by fire until they became ashes in front of him. Both the corpse and his own dead body were visual nimittas right there before him, and he defined them in the same way, but at different times, just depending on whichever was suited to the contemplation he was doing. After he had induced the fire to burn the bones down to fine ashes, his citta concentrated down to reach the basic level of samadhi in complete absorption, and rested there for a long time, lasting for hours before withdrawing. As soon as his citta had withdrawn, he went on doing the same forms of practice as before. He said that from the day that his citta manifested these nimittas, and he could set them up to be as he wanted them, right through to cremating the remains of the corpse, he could go down and see them quite clearly in his heart at any time he wanted, regardless of whether he was standing, walking, sitting, or lying down. For whatever his situation was, he would set up that corpse, which had turned into a skeleton, and see it as being attached intimately to his own body at all times. The only exception was at those special times when he contemplated that corpse in various ways, after which the citta would then concentrate down into the state of samadhi, and rest in itself alone for a while. At such times he had no interest or concern for anything. He could see clearly how the strength of his citta began to develop, and how he attained the foundation of samadhi firmly because of his having gained that nimitta, which acted like a grindstone to sharpen up his sati and paññā all the time. He went on in this way until he was able to get the skeleton image of that nimitta to stay within his own body, so that his body and the skeleton became identified as one. and this went on until he had no doubt as to where this skeleton came from and who became this skeleton. After this, he gave up the practice of defining those characteristics, because once the nimitta image had been entirely identified with himself, it became unnecessary for him to define any external image. From then on, he took up and defined his own body as the basis of his contemplation, and depending on the dexterity, skill, and ability of his sati and panya, he would contemplate the body, making it have any characteristics that he determined as he wanted to. At this stage he said how he felt that his samadhi was very strong and stable, because of having depended on the contemplation of the body with panya until the citta would relax and very easily concentrate down into samadhi. The word buddho, which he had used as his preparatory repetition, parikamma, to control and direct the citta since he started to practice, was dispensed with from the day when that nimitta appeared clearly before him, for he then aroused the nimitta with the parikamma atti, bones, which acted as the supporting condition for the citta instead of buddho. All the time he would define them and contemplate them by making them arise, making them change and break up right there in the body. And he would do this in all positions and situations, excepting only those times when he slept. He went on doing this until his body, although still there, turned into the space element, agasatatu, in conformity with his contemplation. His citta was emptied of all material things, such as the physical body, due to the coercive power of sati and panya, which contemplated without ceasing or letting go. He was then skillful in samadhi at all levels, and his vipassana, insight, at the level of rupa dhamma, mind forms or images, was both skillful and very fast to keep up with the mind. He said that vipassana of this level makes the citta shine very brightly and is quite wonderful. If one is carelessly looking only for pleasure and ease, without one's wisdom being clearly aware of the situation, one will probably become addicted and fascinated with this state of voidness, thinking that it is nibbana, without knowing within oneself by means of understanding whether it is nibbana for certain or not. Because all of us have heard that nibbana is voidness, enough for it to have become embedded in our hearts, but without knowing what characteristics nibbana is void of. In particular, the kind of voidness which appeared at this time had something hidden within it. These were the subtle kilesas of his heart. How then could this ever be the voidness of nibbana? Before we can pass beyond the rupa dhamma, which means the body both internally and externally, by means of various forms of contemplation, sati and panya must be whirling around the body nearly the whole time. This accepts only those times when the citta of the one who is digging and searching has become weak and tired due to having done too much work. Then he must take a rest by entering into the quiet calm of samadhi for a while. As soon as he withdraws from samadhi, having regained his strength, he goes on with his contemplative investigation, disentangling the story of the body more and more by using the principle of the three characteristics, the lakkhana, as the way to develop, because the body is a thing of the greatest importance amongst those who practice the way, and with whatever subtlety and skill they are able to contemplate the body, to the same extent they will tend to become fearless and courageous in practicing those methods which they use to progress. This is due to the fact that the body is the dwelling place of the more gross kinds of sexual craving, raga tanha, and conceit, manadirti, all of which live in dependence on the body quite frankly and openly. In some cases, when people forget themselves and lose their restraint, displaying these things outwardly in a gross and vulgar manner, other people, even though they also have kilesas, cannot bear to see it and feel disillusioned, disgusted, and fed up with it. For the above reason, those who practice the way with the aim and full-hearted intention of destroying the kilesas must keep their attention on the parts of the body, Gaya Vipaga, until they become skilled at it and can eliminate sexual craving bit by bit in a way that is clearly apparent to themselves. As to the kilesa of conceit or opinionatedness, this is the kind of kilesa which is irritating and harmful and penetrates to the heart, one's own and other people's, more than any other kilesas. Generally, this kilesa lies just inside the door, waiting for a chance to run out and display itself, which it does very quickly, and it depends upon upadana, attachment to the body as its main support. It is therefore taught in the 4 Satipatthana, arousing of mindfulness, and the 4 Arya-Satya, noble truths, which are amongst the most important dhammas in the teachings of Buddhism, that one should contemplate Gaya Gatasati, mindfulness of the body, much and often, until one has overcome all doubt about the body. Then one may pass beyond it, having got rid of all attachment to it. Venerable Ajaan Mun was accomplished and very skilled in the practice of mindfully contemplating the body, Gayanupassana Satipatthana. He thus had a very wide and precise understanding of all aspects of Dhamma, both inwardly and outwardly, and far beyond all others who were then practicing the way. He said that when he went beyond body contemplation, Gaya-gata, sexual craving ceased to be a problem from then on. This happened in such a way that it was quite unnecessary to ask or discuss it with anyone else, such as an acharya. To do so would be a waste of time and would show up the stupidity of the one who asked, making a laughingstock of him. Because these are things within oneself, and things which disappear from oneself alone due to the circumspection of sati and panya at this level. Just by attaining the level at which sexual craving, raga-tanha, is destroyed and its corpse is expelled from the heart, is enough to bring ease and comfortable living to oneself, free from trouble and anxiety. Because sexual craving is a kind of craving which, so to speak, eats without ever becoming satisfied, and it disturbs and excites the heart, whispering and teasing suggestively and spreading its influence and dominance over the heart. This makes a person timid, scared, dispirited, and feeble in making his way forward for the sake of the path, fruition, and nibbana, which is to be found in the sphere of the noble truths, satya dhamma, and the setting up of mindfulness, satipatthana, and which may be reached by one who practices the way with effort and striving. Venerable Ajaan Mun also said that before the body was fully understood and ceased to be a problem in his contemplation of it, the body which he had contemplated in various ways concentrated together and entered into the sphere of the heart. Then all those thoughts and views, sankhara, associated with uprising and promotion, samudaya, which think of the body as being beautiful, shapely, pleasing, and something which everyone has always been satisfied with, as well as all those thoughts and views associated with the path, magga, which conceptualize the body as being loathsome, paṭipadā, undesirable, and as being aniccaṃ, dukkhaṃ, and anatta, all died away at the same time as the image of the body which concentrated together and went into the heart. Supha, the beautiful and desirable aspect, and asupha, the ugly and undesirable aspect, were then both disposed of as paths for the heart to go along, so that it then passes by between these two dhammas without any remaining attachment to them. No nimittas remained clinging on to the heart to deceive it with beauty or ugliness, and every time he did any contemplation of the body, he just saw the citta, which displayed the body's characteristics as an internal image, which then died away and ceased. From then on, His citta was devoid of all material things, including both the body which remained with him and all other things which existed externally. No more did he have any nimittas arising which were symbols of beauty, supha, and ugliness, asupha, as he used to prior to this stage. There was just brightness and a citta devoid of all things throughout its field, and it turned about in contemplation with mindfulness and wisdom, acting as the driving force leading him onward. The next thing that steadily became the focus of attention for mindfulness and wisdom to work on were Vedana, feeling, Sanya, memory, Sankhara, thought processes, and Vijnana, consciousness, which are the dhammas that arise with and cease simultaneously with the heart, and also avidya, the origin and source of all the kilesas.